April 27th, 2020 virtual council work session. It's good to see those of you I can see, and thanks everybody else for calling in. Thank you for joining us in this remote format we're using in response to Governor Brown's stay home, stay safe order. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping its members, staff, and the public safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcasts and meeting materials webpage. Looking ahead, tonight's regular meeting will include a public forum as well as 3 public hearings. Information about how to participate in this meeting is available on the public webcasts and meeting materials webpage. And as always, other avenues of communication with me and city councilors are available, including email and voicemail. Thank you again for joining us. And our first order of business is a COVID-19 update, the financial outlook from the manager. And I just want to give council a heads up that I am going to hold you to 30 minutes tonight and every time when we have these council updates, because you're getting them frequently. You have ample opportunity to get more detailed information at other times. And if we run over, we will consistently be bumping other items off our agenda as we did last week. So I'm going to try to corral it. And so I'll give you all one round, and if there's time, you'll get a second round. Otherwise, I'll just say, we'll have to follow up with the next time, or you'll have to follow up with staff. So with that said, I will turn it over to City Manager.
Okay, thank you very much. So tonight we're going to do the financial update, and as I've said before, 5:30 will be, on Mondays will be the time we talk more internally about how this is affecting us, and Wednesdays will be our response time, where the chief will give his updates. This Wednesday will be a little bit different because you have 2 different work sessions focused on it. So he has a little bit of a night off. So before I jump into that, I do want to remind you that at the end of this, there's a slide I can put up that has a motion should you want to support my extending the emergency declaration another 2 weeks. We can talk about that at the end. I just wanted to point out that we'll be doing that. So I'm going to be co-presenting with Twyla, but I'm going to share my screen and start off first. And then she and I will share from there. So I think one thing that's really important to remember that is a little bit unique for the city of Eugene and for Linn County and other governments is we really have 2 different roles or 2 different ways that we are interacting with this event. And the first one is our role as responders. So not just our first responders on the street, but our emergency operations center. And that's what we've been spending a lot of time talking about. And then our second role is really that of being one of the impacted businesses in Eugene, as we've had some of the same financial concerns that other businesses have, not to the same extent in every area, but some of them are pretty significant. And we wanted to start giving you a high level of that before we get to our May 13th work session. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the first piece of that, which is the emergency response piece. So, we've been active for over 43 days, probably 50 some days. And when I looked this morning, even just on our Microsoft Teams platform, we've had, over 100 people that have been working on just the Emergency Operations Center response, not all on the same day, because we've been split up over teams over time. And that's continued to morph and evolve. But when I started thinking about magnitude of impact, we know that represents, just in that time, we've had over 35,000 hours that have been coded to this response, which is somewhere around plus or minus $2 million just in staff time. So we often don't like to talk about those numbers too much because it's not new costs. It's a lot of those staff resources are already budgeted time. They're just doing different things. So for example, Terry Harding is working right now as a liaison officer. Normally she would be doing planning. So it's more about the work that's not getting done as we have staff jump in at every edge to try to get this work done. When this is all said and done, we will have a very full economic report that we submit to FEMA that'll include everything we've purchased, all of our staff time, in hopes that we get as much of that recovered as we can. And so for that reason, we count everything. It's really one of the most well-documented things we do at the city when we get into storm response or emergency response. So I'm not going to go deep into that. We'll cover that later when we actually have those plans. But I think it's important just to know that there's that side of the cost, and then the portion that Twyla will talk about. So I thought it would just be interesting to look at a little bit of the data before Twyla starts her presentation about why is it that we're having these impacts and why are businesses having these impacts. So I put the website out there just looking at some of the data of how we've been moving around this county. You can see the gray bars. The gray bars are the number of cases that we've had reported. And then, just this is the change in average mobility. So distance traveled for individuals. You can see it kind of, it dropped, but it's kind of been up and down, compared to change in non-essential visits. So this is based off, in the next slide, you'll see some of this. This is based off data. People know. So the cellular providers know, when you're going to a grocery store, when you're going to a library, when you're going to a pharmacy, they can track that data. And this is kind of like at a high level showing that, from the time we started in February 26 to now, we've had a big drop off in those types of visits. So when those things drop off, that means revenue to those businesses also drop off. A little bit more detail on that, which I thought was really interesting. Here's some information that Google put together just about Lane County. And you can see, really when you look at retail and recreation, and when I think of that, recreation meaning like things people are paying to do, like they're going to, I don't know, an arcade, something like that. Those numbers have really dropped off. But if you look over on the far right, you can see that in parks, it's been sort of up and down, and in some ways, much more up over time. So these are just a little bit, just little bits of information that show like, hey, everyone really has stayed home, which has been awesome, because that was the whole point, is like, let's stay home and save lives. But that staying home and saving lives has had impacts on all of our local businesses. It's had impacts on us. So with that, I think I'm going to move the slide forward, and Twyla's going to jump in here, I believe, if I can make it go forward. Suddenly now it doesn't want to go forward. There we go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I'm Twyla Miller, the finance director, and our finance team has been evaluating the financial impact of this event and looking at a range of possible outcomes. It's definitely an understatement to say we're living in a time of great uncertainty, and many future impacts will be dependent upon the events that unfold over the coming months. And while we're impacted in the short term, we aren't impacted in the same way as some jurisdictions are around the country, that those jurisdictions that are dependent upon sales tax revenue or transient room tax revenue for their general operations. And while there is an impact in the short term, we will likely see a larger impact in the mid to long term range as we understand the economic impacts of social distancing and the phase out of stay-at-home orders, as well as what happens over the next 6 to 18 months. So when I think of short term, I'm thinking of short term between kind of now and the end of July. So understanding the immediate impact to revenue and services. I'll talk a bit about revenues in a moment, but there's also service impacts as we have facilities and programs that are closed and staff working on other components related to the COVID response. At this time, the city is conserving resources for future flexibility. We currently have a hiring pause in place. And while we are always prudent with spending, we are being even more cautious as we come to the end of the fiscal year to provide that future flexibility. And we are also looking at the FY21 proposed budget under a new lens. The city manager will be presenting some amendments to the proposed budget at the May 13th budget committee meeting. And when I'm talking about midterm, I'm really talking about fiscal year 22. So we're looking at midterm as being July 2020 to June of 2021. We continually will actively monitor economic data and our actual experience, as there's a large range of possible outcomes, and this analysis will help us to adjust course as we need to. And also, as we understand more, we can begin work on adjusting the FY21 budget if needed via the supplemental budget in December. During that same time period, as we go into the summer and the fall, we'll also begin to work on developing the FY22 proposed budget and any strategies needed for that future look. And it will also be important to continue strong financial stewardship and be flexible in our financial approach and service delivery to position the organization to respond to community needs. And then long-term really is FY23 and beyond. So as we understand more of the impacts of everything that's happening over the next 6 to 12 months, understanding what that means to service delivery and the needs of the community and also our financial condition. Next slide, please, Sarah. So the financial and economic impacts I'm discussing today are specific to the City of Eugene's financial condition. I recognize that there are greater economic impacts to both individuals and the business community that will impact service needs and service delivery into the future, but we won't address those here tonight. This is really intended to be a high-level overview of what we're looking at for the City of Eugene in our financial piece. So when we look into the short term, again, that's kind of looking now into the summer, there are some immediate impacts to revenues and operations. So the first I'll talk about is the airport. Airport revenues have decreased by 95% given current restrictions. However, the good news here is that under the CARES Act Airport Grant Program, the Eugene Airport is scheduled to receive approximately $22.7 million to maintain ongoing operation of the airport. So that's a good news story. The next I'll touch upon is parking. Parking revenues are also down. They're down about 90% since the stay-at-home order was implemented. Staff are actively monitoring the impact of the parking funds and are looking at the range of possible outcomes for service needs as we eventually begin to phase into what the new normal will look like. Transient room tax revenues are down as people aren't traveling, and this revenue source will also be monitored closely as non-essential travel is allowed in the future to understand the impact to the Cultural Services Subfund. And then there's the program impact. With many of our facilities, such as the Halt Center and library, program revenues will be lower for the year as well, and possibly into the fall as we understand what the new normal is. We are also watching impacts to the gas tax revenues with receipts down as people stay at home. And again, the longer term impacts for all of these revenues really will be dependent upon the events that unfold over the coming months. We are also monitoring state and federal actions, both for recovery funding opportunities through legislation as the Federal CARES Act, as well as state actions that impact local communities as we begin to phase back again into the new normal. The other piece we're doing in the finance office are really looking at a range of information and making connections with people and our stakeholders to tap into expertise to base our financial modeling on. So we're looking at, again, looking at our revenues and the fund impact and what service delivery might look like as we look into the future and how various phase and scenarios might impact our financial condition. We're also looking at history. We're modeling after our experience during the Great Recession. So when we think about some of the main levers there, particularly with the general fund, property tax impact kind of out into that mid to long-term range, impacts to our portfolio rate, EWIB, SILT revenues, those sorts of things. The Great Recession is different than this event, and there's continues to be great uncertainty. However, this gives us a place to start for understanding what that impact might look like and the timing of some of those events. And then we're also doing quite a bit of research and outreach. So we're staying current with economic modeling and the thinking of economists and impact on local unemployment. And we're having conversations with our partners in other jurisdictions, such as the county, the tax assessor, EWEB, and also with professional advisors such as our financial advisor. Next slide. So the outcome of all of this analysis is a range of financial modeling. Again, we're largely drawing impacts to the city that we used from our experience in the Great Recession, knowing that it will be different, but it gives us a place to start, not knowing the range of events that will unfold. As you may recall, in the Great Recession, the city made ongoing reductions to the general fund of about $30 million between 2009 and 2015. And while we aren't foreshadowing budget reductions of that magnitude at this point in time, there is a large range of uncertainty as to the actual economic impact, and there likely will be budget adjustments that will need to be made as we look to the coming years. As this event unfolds and we know more, we will be reassessing and adjusting along the way, knowing that we will need to be nimble to adjust to a changing economic situation and the changing needs of our community. Through a history of strong financial management, the organization is positioned to be able to respond in a thoughtful way to provide support to the community without immediately having to constrict service delivery. The city manager will be presenting an amended budget proposal and general fund forecast at the May 13th Budget Committee meeting that incorporates some initial modeling and sets us on a course to respond to this event and to work towards recovery in a fiscally responsible manner. The Budget Committee will meet in May to make a recommendation to the City Council, who will adopt the FY21 budget in June. And again, staff will continually monitor our financial condition and provide updates to Council as necessary along the way. So now I'll turn it back to Sarah for final thoughts.
Thank you, Twyla. Appreciate that. I'm just gonna forward, when you're ready for it, we can come back to this at the end. But until then, I think I will, Mayor, I think I'll leave it on this screen in case somebody has a question about any of the slides, and then I'll stop sharing.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. And I have Councillor Clark with his hand up first. So Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both Sarah and Twyla for that great report. Appreciate it very much. Twyla, typically it's my recollection that typically property tax collections in an average year come in 96, 97%. Am I close to right on that?
Yes, about 95, between 95 and 97, depending on the year, but that's correct.
At the height of the Great Recession, what was the rate?
The collection rate is, I want to say it was more around the 93%. I think it dipped as low.
What are you anticipating and projecting for this?
So in our previous forecast, we were assuming a 95% collection rate, and we have assumed 94% in FY20, dipping down to 93% in 21, 22, and then slowly coming back up. So again, modeling after that kind of that Great Recession where there's a lag. So for instance, we will slowly start to see an impact in FY20, 21, and more of an impact in 22, 23 before we dip out again in the out years.
Why do you think it'll be a bigger impact in the out years?
The collection rate?
Yeah.
Well, there's a, this is actually based on, our experience, and then also in talking with the tax assessor, that they anticipate the collection rate being down 1 to 2%, and it just depends on the impact to the local taxpayers in the community. And yeah, but it's in line with what the assessor sees of kind of going down 1 to 2% and kind of hovering there before slowly coming back up.
Do you have any information on why he's speculating at 1 to 2%?
I can find out more.
That would be great. I know that we already have 7% of people in mortgage forbearance, which means they're not paying into their fund. And I think we're going to see a problem with that in the fall as we're entering into FY20. And I think it may end up being a bigger problem than many are seeing or looking at or preparing for. So I would just urge real caution there.
And one thing I will say is all the modeling we're doing, it's based on what we know today, talking with folks, and again, looking at the recessionary impacts to the city from the Great Recession, understanding that this is a very different event, and it will unfold. There are different impacts and different levers, and we won't truly know the impact. So a moderate approach. We model a range of impacts to the forecast, and particularly with the general fund. But again, it's taking a moderate approach now, and we will continue to analyze and make adjustments as we learn more information. So
during the Great Recession, a lot of the secondary lenders would pay off on the taxes because they didn't want to lose the property in foreclosure. But in this particular instance, this year, there's no help for secondary lenders. The federal government has not stepped in, but has told people that they can take forbearance. So those folks who usually get paid are having to pay out their bondholders, but not pay out, or rather not have any income coming in. And I don't know that they're going to have the capacity to keep current on taxes in the same way they did during the Great Recession. So I would urge a careful watching of that somehow. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have Alan next.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'm wondering the shape of the modeling that's going to be done. And a lot of folks are talking about a V recession where it goes down and it comes back up because the fundamentals of the economy weren't at stake. It was an eruption. So I'm wondering how you guys are thinking about that in terms of the modeling and impacts on revenue.
Yeah, we've looked quite a bit, and I've done a lot of reading and listening and talking with really smart economists. And while there are some models that show a V, due to the uncertainty and the length of this recovery and what may happen again in the fall, I think more of the economists are looking at this being more of a U. So longer and maybe steeper and longer than a V. There won't be the bounce back that I think people were hoping when we first started into this situation and didn't understand maybe some of the things we understand now. But I think generally people are looking at this more of a U-shaped recovery.
Okay, bummer. Thanks.
We'll be prepared to go into a lot more detail about the forecast on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Anybody else? We have a few more minutes. Anybody got one more question? Okay, thank you. Oh, Alan?
One more. The airport and the parking ones are both substantially down, obviously, but they're both funds that are enterprise funds, right? They don't impact the general fund, and so even though they're both down, it's not a general fund problem, but it is a potential operational cost problem for those two funds, which then could turn around and come back to the general fund. Do I get that right?
That's correct. They are both enterprise funds, and
with reserves.
With reserves. So to the extent that they can navigate through this, and depending on the length of the situation we're in, while they're generally self-reliant, we may be in a situation where we're looking to provide stability to those funds.
If I get a cat meow, I get to do a Zoom bingo.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Twyla. Thank you, Manager, for that update. I think that's helpful, and we'll all be eager to see more details when we're ready to talk about the budget. So we're on to our next order of business, which is to discuss.
Mayor, unless you guys want to, want to do that. Yeah.
Yep, you're right. Let's take that motion back. I forgot. Thank you. Do we want our council interested in putting a motion on the table? Emily, would you put that on the table?
Move to support the city manager pro tem in extending the city's emergency declaration by an additional 2 weeks.
Second.
Okay, great. Does council, anyone need to discuss this?
Yes.
Yes, support.
Yeah, Sarah, I would appreciate it if you just kind of outline your reasons why.
Let me unmute myself here. Yeah, so I think that one of the things I asked Chief Heppel to do today is to start coordinating with the other incident commanders around the region around what they're thinking in terms of the emergency declaration and how long to keep going. So for now, my thinking is that our emergency declaration probably makes the most sense to line up with the governor's phased plan and the county's phased plan. I'm not exactly sure where that perfect window is going to be of when it stops, but the declaration is for an additional 2 weeks. I know we're going to be, I think we're 2 weeks out from phase one based on some of what I'm hearing, and we can always stop it. So if we get partway into our 2 weeks and we feel like it's not necessary to have that, we can lift it. But until we're a little bit farther down, it just feels like it's prudent. It sends a wrong message, I think, also to the community when we're trying to get them to stay on the flattening the curve to say City of Eugene has decided this isn't an emergency.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Anybody, any other comments? I don't see any, but ready for a vote? All in favor of extending the emergency declaration 2 more weeks? Please raise your blue hands, or let's see, if you would all do your, except for Betty, do your little, it's going to be easier for me to see because the screen is filled with other things. Let's see, I've got Greg, Alan, Emily. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Now I can see you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see, 7. Okay. I got it. Everyone, any opposed? 1 opposed. Okay, 7 to 1, and that passes. Thank you very much. I think that's great. Okay. Okay, now on to our ongoing business, adoption of Eugene Springfield 2020 Consolidated Plan. And Manager, we have a report from staff first before we look at the motion.
Yeah, on the consolidated plan. Yeah, I think Stephanie's doing a presentation on that and the 1-year action plan.
Perfect.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I will. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. My name is Stephanie Jennings, and I manage the Housing Opportunities team within the Planning and Development Department. Today, Council is presented with a recommendation to approve the Eugene Springfield 2020 Consolidated Plan for Affordable Housing and Community Development. This is the 3rd of 3 work sessions on the 2020 Consolidated Plan. Previous work sessions were held in February and November. Today, I will briefly review the CON plan scope and purpose, community profile, and needs, proposed goals and strategies for use of HUD funds, and next steps. Council will then have time for question and discussion and to consider the city manager's recommendation. So first, I'll quickly review the scope and purpose of the consolidated plan. Every 5 years, the cities of Eugene and Springfield must assess community conditions and identify priority needs and strategies in order to receive federal funds through the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, known as HUD, Community Development Block Grant, and Home Investment Partnership Program funds, known as CDBG and Home, are the 2 primary sources of HUD funding awarded through this process. This plan essentially sets the menu of options for the use of an estimated $16 million in new CDBG and home funds that will be received by the 2 jurisdictions over the next 5 years. Congress has also decided to appropriate CDBG funds to address the impacts of COVID-19. This plan will also guide the use of these funds. The 2020 plan is due to HUD on May 15th for their review and approval, so the new plan may take effect on July 1st. It's important to note that the scope of this plan is limited to eligible uses of CDBG and home funds. So when you look at the 5-year structure for the planning process, we adopt a consolidated plan, and then each year the cities must adopt an annual action plan to allocate the dollars received in that particular year. This can vary from year to year as the appropriations from Congress goes up and down. Once the action plan is adopted locally and approved by HUD, we can move forward with project selection and implementation. Progress against the 5-year goals is assessed each year through an annual report called the CAPER. There are numerous goals in the Consolidated Plan development process, which we've discussed in previous work sessions. There's also a companion analysis called the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing, which informs the Consolidated Plan needs and strategies. To support the plan development process, the city contracted with the Cloudburst Group, a national firm that works with jurisdictions across the country to create consolidated plans. We also worked with a local public engagement firm, Cogito, to support outreach efforts. This slide shows the steps in the plan development process, which essentially fall into 2 categories: assessing the impact of past activity and current community needs, and then the strategic plan development. Community engagement occurred both during the needs assessment stage and also in the strategic plan stage of this process. Throughout this process, staff worked with the Eugene Springfield Consolidated Plan Advisory Committee, which included Councilor Chris Pryor, Springfield Councilor Marilee Woodrow, and 2 community representatives from each city. This slide represents the numerous ways we work to reach a wide range of community members in both the needs assessment and development of draft strategies. This engagement also informed the analysis of impediments to fair housing. This process culminated with a final meeting of the Consolidated Plan Advisory Committee and public hearing that was held on April 1st. At this meeting, the committee considered all of the findings, made adjustments to the priority needs and strategies to reflect the emerging impacts of COVID-19, and made a unanimous recommendation in support of the proposed needs and strategies that I will be presenting to you. A great deal of community data and trends are analyzed as part of the Consolidated Plan process. This data is good at showing the rear view and helps to provide a pre-COVID baseline, but does not reflect current conditions. We've spent some time discussing these trends during the work session in February, and of course, we're in a very different world now. We know many people are experiencing significant and sudden financial hardship, which in turn affect many aspects of their well-being. We have made efforts to try to ensure that the Consolidated Plan reflects the emerging conditions and challenges. As I mentioned, the companion analysis of impediments, there were a number of different aspects that were incorporated into this process. And so this slide summarizes some of the identified issues that have been incorporated both into the Consolidated Plan where appropriate and also into the Fair Housing Plan. As we look at the proposed priority needs, the data analysis and community engagement supported the conclusion of 6 proposed priority needs, including 4 that relate to specific low-income populations, 1 related to employment, and 1 that focuses on low-income areas. These priority needs are the same as what was presented in February, with 1 small change to recognize that renters are in need of housing stability assistance as well as increased access to quality, affordable housing opportunities. So now I'll talk a little bit about the strategic goals for the use of CDBG and home funds. As I've previously discussed, CDBG and home are the primary funding sources guided by the Consolidated Plan, and as such, any goals have to fit with the requirements of these 2 programs. These are fairly complicated programs, and I've tried to summarize these challenges within these 2 slides for your reference. I'll now move on to talking about the proposed strategies. We have 5 proposed affordable housing strategies that would utilize both home and CDBG funds. The first and most significant goal is to increase the supply of affordable housing, including both affordable rental and homeownership units. There's clearly still a pressing need for more affordable units, and there will likely be even more low-income people as a result of the crisis that we're experiencing. While we need more homes, we also need to preserve the housing we already have. Over 60% of our housing stock is over 40 years old. We also have over 3,500 units of affordable housing in Eugene, and some of these developments are in need of reinvestment. Assistance to help people get into housing and remain stable has become much more important in the past month. In response to both community feedback and data analysis, the Consolidated Plan Advisory Committee voted to add provide rent assistance to the proposed affordable housing strategies, which is featured here as the fourth item. The last strategy provides support for fair housing and other efforts to remove barriers to housing. Here's a quick example of how these strategies ultimately result in affordable housing opportunities for our community. Here you have examples of how we've used home and CDBG funds, coupled it with local resources to leverage significant state and federal funds, resulting in the development of quality affordable housing that will last for many years. I'll now move on to the community development strategies. The proposed community development strategies would be implemented just with CDBG funds. The first goal includes support for human services and assistance for multiple populations. The second goal focuses on expanding economic opportunities. Oops, I'm sorry. And the third goal focuses on strategic investments in low-income areas. These are the same goals that were presented to you in February. Here is an example of how community development resources are used to both support human service programs and also improve the places where services are provided in the community. And then also here is a list of the fair housing strategies that have been recommended as a part of the analysis and have been incorporated into different consolidated plan strategies where appropriate. Lastly, we don't have time to go into detail, but I did want to mention that there are many different relationships with other city plans that are supported through the consolidated plan investments that have been made over time. And I would anticipate this to continue in the future. We certainly paid attention to this as we were developing the consolidated plan goals and strategies. So for the final steps in the process, this basically outlines what we've achieved since our meeting in February. We've published the draft consolidated plan for a 30-day written comment period. We held the final consolidated plan advisory committee and joint public hearing. Today, Eugene City Council is considering the consolidated plan. On May 4th, Springfield City Council will consider adoption of the consolidated plan. And then we'll complete the electronic application and submit the consolidated plan along with the first year action plan to HUD. And then the 2020 consolidated plan period will begin on July 1st. I'm happy to take any questions or comments. And I'm going to unshare my screen.
Oh, thank you. That makes it life easier for me.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. I have Alan in the queue. Thank you, Stephanie. It's always a very interesting report, and I'm a fan of the work of the consolidated plan because it just gives us such a good framework from which to understand what's actually going on in the community, and even recognizing that the need is even deeper now because of COVID. But thank you for that. So I have Alan.
Thanks, Mayor. Good presentation. Great work on the plan and all the people that helped put it together, Chris, other folks. So if I got this right, we've got home and CDBG money, about 2.5 from home and 2.25 from CDBG, so about $4.7 million. That's an annual number, right?
Yes, and those numbers include some program income which goes up and down from year to year. So, because I think you were looking at the first year action plan figures.
Yeah.
So the entitlement money is the new money that comes each year, and then the program income is from our revolving loan fund.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's probably about half of the home money, and same with CDBG. Okay, it's not a lot, and especially with the need that we have, and in particular, one of the figures that was in the report said that Eugene income for the period 2010 to 2017 rose 14%, which is fine, probably less than inflation, but for almost the same period, 2010 to 2019, rents went up 47%. It's not exactly the same time frame, but it's around threefold difference in rents going up to income going up, which is why we have a bigger problem, and we it keeps getting worse. You know, for the statistics on page 42 of our packet, for moderate to low income people, a housing burden, 30% of their income for renters is 8 out of 10, and 50%, 2/3 of them are housing burden, with 50% of their income going towards housing. And for homeowners, it's not that much better. For low and moderate income, it's for 30% housing burden for homeowners was 2/3, and then 50% was still 6 and 10. So it's a huge problem because people's incomes aren't matching our rents. So I think that's the nutshell of it for me. And part of the issue is getting people's incomes up so we can get and trying to create more affordable housing so that the rents go down. On page 34, some jobs created, businesses assisted, micro business trainees, 150 jobs created, 25 businesses assisted, 150 micro business trainees. Can you explain that a little bit more? I didn't quite get what that is and how that works.
So in terms of the projections, so we're estimating the number of businesses that would be impacted over the 5-year period, and then the number of jobs that would be created through those investments. And so you can have multiple jobs that are created through a single business loan. And then the micro enterprise training is a separate program. And so that is just the number of people that have received training.
And micro meaning like 1-2 person businesses.
People who are self-employed, people who are maybe have a couple of employees.
Another question on page 43 notes there were 1,629 homeless youth in our area, and there are no youth-specific resources for transition age groups 18 to 24. I know that's a long-standing issue. Any movement on getting some programs in that area, which has been going on for, heck, as far as I know, a long time?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a need. It's not transitional housing, but in this past 5-year period, we did support housing development for youth aging out of the foster care system. That's actually a permanent housing opportunity. And so it is some progress, and it certainly has brought some attention to the issue locally.
Yeah, over 1,600 youth homeless. Final question is on page 27, talks about the 1,633 unsheltered people, and then it has some statistics. 525 are reported substance abuse, 759 are seriously mentally ill. Are some of those double counted so that it's both?
Yeah.
So you can, there could be both mental illness and substance abuse and be counted. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay.
Claire.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie, for the report. I also support the strategies that are outlined there and appreciate the work of the folks who gave input into that. I did have a question, and I know on the grid, That's on page 33. So Alan referenced it in his question about the strategy, goal, the priority needs, possible examples, measurements, and then the numbers. So I'm hoping that under renters, we're not expecting only to help 20 rental households over a 5-year period.
So rent assistance is something that is not something that we have done as a program in the past. And so when we put goals into the plan, this of course was a goal that we added fairly late in the process because we were trying to respond to COVID. We said, let's put a modest goal because we're still assessing whether or not it makes sense to use this funding source. And this is part of the challenge right now, is that there are a number of different ways that rental assistance could be supported. And we don't know whether or not it's going to be a significant focus for the use of these funds. So we put a modest goal in so that it was included. HUD does not hold you very closely to the specific outcomes you've identified. And so I think putting a modest goal in just gives us flexibility.
Okay. I just worry about the message it sends to the community that we're shooting so low. And I recognize you're saying we may have other resources to draw upon to do rental assistance, that community development block grant funds and HUD money aren't necessarily going to be our only opportunity. But I just wanted to let the community know that I think council as a whole has a commitment to digging into that further and finding how we can be more helpful beyond just 20 households over this next year, if able to find the resources to do that.
Yeah, and I would just add, if we had significantly increased that goal, because this is the home funds, we would have to revisit the number of units that we're planning to produce and reduce that, because you're shifting
in terms
money.
of publicly supported housing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Chris.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everybody who worked on this process. It really was very thoughtful, very deliberate, and also very flexible when the COVID-19 situation arose, and we made some kind of quick adaptations and accommodations in it, still retaining the basis for what the Consolidated Plan does. And I think the previous speakers, both of them, have raised some really important points that need to be taken into consideration. One is that we can't look at home and CDBG as the magic bucket from which we're going to solve the housing situation. It's a very important part of it, but we do need some flexibility in other sources, and we need to talk about what some of those other sources might be to help supplement this in terms of the things we can do. This plan was a good joint plan between Eugene and Springfield, and I think it was well crafted in order to reflect the values of both communities, and does, I think, really well the job it's intended to do. And then the last point I'll make is a little bit of something that Alan brought up earlier, which is it's very hard to talk about affordable housing without talking about workforce and income. Because if we give rent assistance to somebody who has a poor job, that's going to help them for a month or two, but they still have a poor job. So it's not a part of this conversation, but I think we should at some point talk about Eugene's role in helping with income and workforce development, because it's the income that helps people to afford housing of whatever kind. So don't look at this as the solution to affordable housing. There's many other elements. I think this one is really good and should be approved for the work that it's going to do. But yeah, it does point out there's other conversations we need to have.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose as additional, I would agree with Alan and Chris that we could do a great deal to be of help with regard to median income, with regard to helping the affordability problem by helping to increase the amount of money people get paid. But I would say also that by comparison, our market is more expensive than many, and artificially so for quite a while, and it's due in large part to some of our decisions that the lack of availability of land, the DET, the SDC rates, the other things that we add to the process, as anyone in the industry knows, adds to the expense of housing. Stephanie, thank you very much for the report. This is a 5-year plan, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Can you summarize? I know perhaps it's challenging to do this. How much money are we talking about in state and federal funds, home fund, CDBG, over the course of 5 years or each year?
So based on, we did a projection, and it's simply taking the amount that we're receiving in the first year and multiplying it by 5. And so that comes to about $16 million that's going to be received by both jurisdictions.
Over the 5 years?
Will receive over 5 years. Eugene will receive about $5 million.
Got it. So about $1 million.
I'm sorry, $10 million. $10 million.
Okay. Roughly $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Can you talk about our metrics or the measurement of how we know that $2 million succeeded?
So as we looked at developing the metrics for this 5-year plan, we looked at the last 5-year plan and what we were able to achieve with the resources. And so the metrics is not an indication of what we would need to do to meet the need in the community. It's an indication of what we could reasonably expect to achieve using the home and CDBG dollars. And I would add, so if we do a low-income housing tax credit project, for example, which is the main vehicle for developing affordable housing, we're putting a small amount of money into that project compared to the other resources that we're leveraging. Mm-hmm. But we will count all of the units in that project, because without our investment, the project would have a very difficult time moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other counselors who haven't had a chance? I thank you for this. I wanted to highlight one aspect of this, which is the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, which is a very powerful document. And it really does break out in a very short and discrete way the challenges that people are facing in accessing housing. We know about the distinction between income and rent, but I think this really highlights, discrimination issues, lending and sale discrimination, landlord education. I mean, there are some really critical pieces here and some very good recommendations. So I'm thinking as we go forward, I just want to keep that particular document and those points very much foremost in our mind, because people are struggling even more than they were when you developed this document. So it feels to me that those barriers are even more profound for certain parts of our community. So thank you very much for the work. And we need a motion on the table for this. So Emily? You're still muted.
Thank you. I move to adopt resolution number 5294, a resolution approving the Eugene Springfield 2020 Consolidated Plan.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Greg, yes.
No, Mayor, that is.
You're voting. Okay. All right. Okay, that's great. Okay, all in favor? Signify by raising your hand, your real one or your virtual one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, Emily, I got you twice. Okay, 8. All in favor, thank you so much. None opposed. That's great. Okay, thank you. And now the next piece of this is adoption of the one-year action plan. Do we have an additional explanation of this?
Yes. I will go back to sharing my screen. I have a pretty short presentation.
Perfect.
To just review that.
Perfect.
Okay. So we'll now move on to the 2020 one-year action plan for use of CDBG and home funds received by the City of Eugene. As I described in the last presentation, the city must allocate CDBG and home funds each year among the strategies included in the 5-year plan. It is not required to allocate money to every strategy every year. So it's simply a menu and you can choose which ones you wish to allocate funding to. Similar to previous action plans, city staff worked with the CDBG Advisory Committee and the Home Consortium Governing Board to develop the proposed allocation. Public hearings were held by both bodies and there is unanimous support for the proposed allocation. I will add that those hearings took place after some of the impacts of COVID so that we were able to discuss some of those changes as we developed the recommendation. It's important to note that this allocation does not include the recently appropriated CDBG CV dollars that were appropriated through the CARES Act. We're still waiting on further guidance from HUD on the use of those dollars, and we'll come back to council at a future date to allocate those resources. The proposed affordable housing strategies include home funds to increase the supply of affordable housing within the first strategy. These dollars will be made available through an annual housing RFP to support projects in both jurisdictions. We are also exploring using a portion of these funds to stabilize existing home projects that may have been impacted by the current crisis. The proposed allocation also includes CDBG resources for the rehabilitation of existing affordable housing and emergency home repair dollars for low-income people. This includes both new CDBG resources and expected program income from housing loans. And then lastly, there's funding to support fair housing services and work to remove barriers to affordable housing. For the community development strategies, the proposed allocation includes CDBG funding for human service programs supported through the Human Services Commission, and then also there are resources for the city's business growth fund that come from expected program income from previous business loans. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay. Anybody? Thank you very much for that. And I'm just scanning this up. Betty has raised her hand. There you go, Betty, take it away.
Thank you. My question is about rehabilitation. Is that only for subsidized housing, or could that be for people's housing that they can't afford to maintain?
Good question. So we have two programs. The first is the Emergency Home Repair Program, where we're working with low-income homeowners and also people who live in manufactured home parks where they own their units but rent their spaces. And that program has supports over 30 households per year and makes a big impact for those households. I really think of it as a homelessness prevention program. The second program is the rental rehabilitation program, where we're working with owners of rental housing. This could be subsidized housing or it could be market housing. The requirements for CDBG require that at least 51% of the households have incomes below 80% of area median income. So it tends to be the affordable housing providers that utilize that program because they can meet the requirements of CDBG.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions needing answered? Okay, all right. Emily, I think we're ready to put a motion on the table.
Move to approve the Eugene Springfield 2020 one-year action plan summary for use of federal CDBG and home funds provided in attachment B.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your real or virtual hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. That passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephanie. Great report, great work. And I think we are adjourned early. Well done. And we'll see you back here at 7:30. Thanks so much, everybody.